to another episode of the Cinema Scoop podcast with Sam and Jordan. And today we will be talking about our guilty pleasure movies. We have 6 each because we had a lot, and we tried to dwindle it down to 5, but it was too difficult.
Yeah.
So these are basically movies that we really like that are universally discredited or thought as to be bad, which we would obviously disagree with. So I'm just going to go right into it, and then Jordan can do her first one. But my first pick is going to be Basketball, which is baseball and basketball combined into one word and one sport. This came out in 1998. It's a comedy. It stars Trey Parker and Matt Stone, who are the creative guys behind South Park. And I'm not a big fan of South Park. I haven't really watched any of it, but I saw this movie, and I like baseball and I like basketball, and they put them together to make basketball, and it just works for me. They basically create their own sports league with different cities and different team names, and the names reflect the cities, but it's very stereotypical. Like, this movie would definitely be canceled. Like, there's definitely some cringy sexual humor at times, but I just really like it for the aspect of they're just like shooting a basketball in their driveway, and they're like, depending on where they shoot it at, that's where if it's a single, double, triple, or home run. It's really ridiculous, but I really like it, and I need to watch it again soon.
Well, I haven't seen that, so I just added it to my watch list so that next time you watch it, I'll watch it with you. So, my first guilty pleasure, and I will say this is my favorite guilty pleasure movie, because this low-key slaps, and it's Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. And the reason why is because it is just the ultimate movie to just like vibe out to, because it's just vignettes of different scenarios that they're getting into while they're just stoned and really want to get White Castle. And every vignette could be its own SNL skit, arguably. And it's just a really good, like, funny friendship type movie. So it's also like a feel-good movie too. But yeah, I highly value this movie. I didn't mean to say that like that. Highly value. But, you know, it's very, very good, actually. And the first time I watched it, I kind of was like, I don't know, this is just like trashy comedy, like not going to be very good. And I was just so pleasantly surprised with how it was actually funny. So I love this one.
There's definitely a lot of crude humor elements to that as well.
Like the battle shits scene.
Yeah. But it's also like, if you've ever craved anything to eat specifically, this is like the perfect movie.
Yes.
Because it's like, that's all the movie is they want White Castle, and that's the movie. But obviously the journey they take to get it is really funny, and Neil Patrick Harris comes into play, and it's...
Yeah.
There's a raccoon.
Yes. There's Christopher Maloney.
There's a cheetah.
Christopher Maloney is in this.
Yeah.
Elliot Stabler, but he plays the most un-Elliot Stabler character
He's like
ever.
A goblin. He's like a redneck goblin
goblin man that has like a smoking hot wife for inexplicable reasons. And like, that whole skit, again, they're all like SNL skits basically. Like, I love this movie. And it slaps even harder if you have, like, actual White Castle to eat. So, yeah, what's your next one?
I'm going to do one more comedy, and it's Weekend at Bernie's. This one, I actually saw for the first time. It was 2021. And yeah, I've always heard about it, and it's just like the quintessential, like, oh... 2 guys with their dead boss for the weekend at his house. And, like, that's kind of, like, it's almost like burned into the pop culture just for that. But as an actual movie, it's pretty well done and it's really funny. There's just so many parts that are just so ridiculous. And um, the guy who plays Bernie, Terry Kaiser, I know there must have been parts where they're using a dummy, but there's so many times where it's really him with the sunglasses, like acting dead, and it's kind of like Daniel Radcliffe in Swiss Army Man, but it's
That takes a level of skill to act dead.
oh yeah, it's very complicated, but if you go into it with an open mind and willing to laugh, it's dumb funny, but it's really funny to me, so I really think it's a guilty pleasure. Okay, what's your second one?
It's funny because you were like, this is my last comedy. And I'm like, geez, the rest of my list is mostly comedies. So the next one is my favorite Adam Sandler movie of all time. It is so lowbrow. It is so bad, but it is so wholesome. And it's Mr. Deeds. I can quote this entire movie from front to back. It has infected my regular vocabulary to a point where I didn't even realize I was still quoting it throughout my life. But then I would think, like, why do I say that one specific line? And then I have to, like, deconstruct it and go, oh, that's why I say it. It's because it's from Mr. Deeds. Like, just weird, random stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's like it's not typical Adam Sandler humor because it's like the cleanest humor on the planet for the most part, which I think is why I saw it when I was like a lot younger, is because my dad felt comfortable showing it to me as like a young girl, because there's not as much like crude humor as most Adam Sandler movies have. So I think the part that makes it the funniest to me is like he basically is really dumb, but like really, really benevolent. And so it's really funny seeing him get into scenarios where he doesn't catch on to what's going on, but there's something bad happening or nefarious happening or whatever. But yeah, I mean, there's really not a whole lot else I can say about this movie that hasn't been said. It's so bad, but it's so good, and it actually is like quite romantic at points. No, there's like several different scenes where like his butler is obsessed with feet and just like loves his feet.
Yeah.
And he's like, I love feet. I do not know why. It's like the dumbest, like, it's like the dumbest Adam Sandler humor, but wiped of all like sexual innuendos or like, it's just all like situationally stupid humor. And I love it. Yeah. That's all I have to say about it. What's your next one?
Okay, my next one is Commando 1985 with Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is right outside my top 5 films of all time. It's number 6 right now, I believe. A lot of people say this is a lesser Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. It's a lesser 1980s action movie. But I would say it's peak all of the above. Great one-liners, great action, way over the top, perfect 80s aesthetics, a great side character in Ray Don Chong, which is, I believe, the daughter of the Chong and Cheech and Chong.
Oh.
Maybe not, I'll have to look that up. But, yeah, great overall movie. Just as soon as you see Arnold Schwarzenegger feeding a deer an ice cream cone, like, what else do you want? Like,
I forgot about that. That's so good.
Yeah, Commando is great, and more people should like it more than it's getting.
It's a Finer Things Club movie.
Yes, it is.
It's a dad-daughter movie.
Yes, it is.
It's got everything. And Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, that's just really hard to top. I love that one. I love it so much that my next film is another Arnold movie. Took him some real acting chops for this one, too. Universally hated, but chronically misunderstood. It's Batman and Robin from 1997. I've kind of already talked about how like I idolized Uma Thurman in this movie, so we really don't have to touch on that. But we forgot to mention that Arnold Schwarzenegger plays Mr. Freeze, and his entire script is just made up of puns for cold stuff. Like, that is every single line of dialogue that he delivers. And, like, they try to give him this backstory about, like, his cancerous wife and how he has to, like, find a cure for her or something. And, like, he, like, puts her in this weird, like, liquid, or he, like, freezes her or something. And that's how he can keep her alive until he can find a cure. But, like, why would, like, none of it really makes a whole lot of sense. But I like this one because, I mean, how can you not like it? It's got Arnold Schwarzenegger as, like, a complete badass Mr. Freeze, where he just freezes people to death. And then you've got Uma Thurman, who is a separate bad guy, but, like, she doesn't necessarily work with Mr. Freeze. And she's just constantly, like, flirting with men to death and then poisoning them. Like, there's a lot of really great campy scenes in this movie that are just very reminiscent of the late 90s. And, I mean, George Clooney just does not want to be there, and it's so obvious, and I love it. Like, it's just, I want to rewatch this movie so soon.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, because obviously it's a guilty pleasure, so most people think it's bad, but, like, when you think of superhero movies back then, yeah, I could obviously see why people didn't like it and it was considered bad. But now that there's like 100 million superhero movies...
Exactly.
Most of the bad superhero movies now are because of bad CGI, bad interconnected scripts with 5 other movies that you didn't see. Whereas this movie is just bad because people don't like puns and it's
campy.
But it's so colorful, and it's so, like, I really like it, so I completely agree.
I want to rewatch it soon, because it, like, I think it knows it's dumb.
That's, yeah, for sure. Or at least like, Arnold Schwarzenegger, for sure.
I respect that so much in a movie, when it, like, knows it's dumb. Yeah, what's your next one?
Okay, so I'm going to do a double pick of Time Cop and Sudden Death. 2 films directed by Peter Hyams, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Damn.
And they're 1994 and 1995, so these were like back-to-back films they made. Yeah, Time Cop is... If you haven't seen Time Cop, you have to watch it as soon as possible, really. Like... He plays a cop and he goes back in time. Like, what else do you want to know? And this is like one of the few Mia Sara performances post Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Yeah, I couldn't even try to describe the plot.
I mean, you just did.
Except that he's a cop that goes back in time. Basically, he's trying to save his wife.
Aren't they all?
And then, so Sudden Death is like... So, we're big fans of The Office. We kind of connected early on in our relationship with the TV show The Office, the US version. And Michael Scott, played by Steve Carell, he is really into the idea of making his own movie called Threat Level Midnight. And there's a part where... he has to like stop the NHL All-Star game from blowing up. This 1995 Sudden Death movie is basically, I think, Michael Scott's inspiration for that. I think it's like this would be his favorite movie, and maybe that's what the creators of The Office were directly ripping off on purpose. But basically, Jean-Claude Van Damme, or JCVD, as people said.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. He's at Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, the hockey tournament, and like there's so many like terrible scripts. I'll just say the generic hockey game, or Houston versus Dallas in the game, and that's all they say. But like this is like, no, it's the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I think the Chicago Blackhawks in the NHL Stanley Cup Finals on ESPN. Like they're like,
wow.
I really admire movies, or I'm thankful for movies that actually get the sports details right when they're talking about sports. So anyway, he goes to this game with his daughter, and his daughter gets kidnapped at the game, and there's going to be an explosion at the final buzzer, and he has to like fight the Pittsburgh Penguins mascot, and it's just incredible. And if you could have like a 3.5 or 4 hour day of just, I'm going to watch Time Cop and Sudden Death back to back, I would highly recommend it.
I haven't seen either of these, so
well, then you need
that
to do what I just said.
idea. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I love that. Cool. Okay, so my next one, I have a hard time feeling guilty about this one, but I guess I can consider it a guilty pleasure just because I just think it's genuinely funny, is Wedding Crashers. I have, like, very specific memories of, like, watching this on the couch with you when we were on vacation before we got married, and before we were engaged, too, and you were just, like, on my family vacation with me, and so we were watching this movie. So I think that's probably why it's a guilty pleasure movie, is just because it's, like, very pleasurable, but, like, it's a stupid movie you just put on while you're on family vacation because it's, like, relatively clean enough to have on with your cousins in the room and, like, your grandma in and out of the room. The comedy is pretty funny. I mean, Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn are just very great to play off of each other. It has, like, a little bit of an element of romance to the story that I like. I think Bradley Cooper as a villain is great because he, like, hardly ever does that. But he's kind of like a preppy, annoying villain.
The character he plays is probably one of the top 5 worst characters in cinema history. This how terrible he is.
He is, like, such a dick. Like, he's got, like, the popped collar, Sperry shoe vibe. Like, he's a piece of shit, but it's really funny to, like, see what happens with him. So, yeah, I like this one. It's really hard to, like, add anything more to it because it's basically about 2 guys that just crash a bunch of weddings. And
yeah, it's one of my favorites. I thought it was more universally liked, so I didn't think about it as a guilty pleasure, but I agree. It's really good.
Yeah, I love this one. What else do you have?
Okay, my last one.
And then I have 2 more because you doubled up.
Yeah, you can do another one then.
Oh, okay. I'll do. Okay, so my next one I think is kind of goes without saying that it's, like, not very good, but if you haven't seen it, you probably should see it. I also have to clarify, like, I don't like Tom Cruise, but I like this movie, and, like, maybe I do like Tom Cruise or something, because, like, I keep finding myself liking more and more Tom Cruise movies. This one, though, I've liked for a very long time, and it's Cocktail, which is basically him just being a bartender and, like, trying to get rich by being a bartender and trying to get the girl, and, like, there's a lot of, like, intricate action shots of him being ridiculous, pouring cocktails and stuff, like the long pour and all the tricks and stuff, like, yeah. And, like, my dad claims that this movie is my namesake because the main girl, her name is Jordan, but they never actually use her name in the movie until, like, maybe the last 30 minutes of the movie. Tom Cruise is, like, going up to her, I think it's, like, her family's house, and he's like, hey, where's Jordan? And that's, like, the first time he ever says her name. But yeah, I do also like that it's, like, my namesake. But it's not a very good movie. Like, on the surface, it's, like, it's fine.
Yeah, it's very silly.
It's very, very silly. Very over the top, and it's Tom Cruise at his Tom Cruisiest. Like, he's, like, reading poetry from as he, like, tells people to drink up and stuff like that, and it's kind of silly, but yeah, I like it, though, because it's, you know, it's a cute little story, and I also like the my name's from it, potentially, so, yeah. What's your last one?
Okay, my last pick is Godzilla vs. Kong 2021. This movie has got it all. It's got Godzilla and it's got Kong. No, but I think so. Godzilla, it's like you can talk for an hour about just all the Godzilla stuff. There's so many movies, and there's obviously a lot of King Kong movies, but I just really like this one because I like the action sequences. I think it's a very visually well done movie. There's a sequence where the characters go into the center of the earth with King Kong, and it's so visually like awestruck, like crazy, that just that alone, I want to watch that right now. But like, the ending where they're fighting in Tokyo, and he's got Kong has the axe, and Godzilla shoots his colorful fire out of his mouth. It's in the trailer, but that part's just really awesome. And yeah, I think I'm really into like creatures and monsters in general, and I haven't seen most of the Godzilla movies, but I just thought for what they were trying to do, they did it really well. And
so is it a guilty pleasure?
Yeah, because most people don't think it's good.
Oh, you're describing like it's very good.
Well, I think it is very good.
I didn't realize it was so hated.
Well, I mean, it's a 2.8 on Letterboxd.
That's pretty bad.
Everyone I know has that 2 or 2.5, pretty much. I have it as a 4.5 out of 5 movies, so I think it's really good.
You're like, I disagree with everyone. That's funny. You've seen it several times. You saw it like 3 times in the year 2021.
I've logged it 3. Oh yeah. No, it was one of those movies. Another reason why I liked it was one of those few movies in post-pandemic where HBO was like, we're going to put all of our Warner Brothers movies on HBO Max for free the same day it's in theaters, and this was one of them. And so I watched it March 31st, and then I liked it so much I watched it the next day. Or maybe I watched it immediately after and it was past midnight. I don't remember. And then I watched it again in December just to refresh myself. But
something's good when you just literally put it right back in and you're like, let's just rewatch that right now. That's crazy.
Okay, what's your last pick?
You ready for this? So, I would say this entire film franchise would be included here, but if I had to pick one movie from this franchise, I'm going to go with Twilight New Moon. And the reason that I put it on the guilty pleasure list, I think it's really obvious. Like, when this came out, girls everywhere were shamed for thinking this was good. And I'm here to tell you it is good. And the reason why it's good is because it's that bad. Like, it is truly that bad of a movie, like, and a movie series, that it is entertaining. And, like, I think it kind of knows that it's bad and it's ridiculous, but it sort of is like, well, we're here and we gotta do this, and yep, that's how it's gonna be. And there's definitely, like, a lot of angsty, over-the-top melodrama, ridiculous glitter skin, terrible, no chemistry, flirting, and stuff. But it works. When you're, like, 14, it works. It just does. And, like, I'm not going to deny myself the pleasure of watching something just because girls everywhere were shamed into thinking this is, like, so terrible and so dumb. And it's like, yeah, it is really terrible and it's really dumb, but it's super fun. And it's just, it's like the ultimate just, like, fantasy. Just, like, get off into this other world of, like, there are vampires that fight each other, but this one loves me and he won't kill me. He's so sweet. Wait, now he's breaking up with me. I'm depressed, and now we're going to play the best soundtrack you've ever heard. Like, the soundtracks to all of these movies are so good. Yeah, they're honestly, like, great movies to revisit every, like, 2 years or so and just, like, get back into them and be like, all right, this is why I loved these. Like, they're infinitely rewatchable. Like, but yeah, like I said, they're really, really bad, and it's kind of a feat that they even got made. The fact that, like, rewatching the first one is so funny that you're like, this is a time capsule to the year, like, 2007, 2008. It's strange how it got made. When you look at it, you're like, how did this end up in a movie theater? It's like, you can't help but watch because it's that bad. But yeah, I love it. And New Moon is my favorite because it has the most, like, banging soundtrack and the most emo vibes possible. So yeah, I'm 31 and I still love Twilight.
It's a part of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so thank you for listening to our Guilty Pleasures episode.
Bye.